we finished the town hall. Here's who I think won. I think Donald Trump won.
I think Donald Trump won as well.
I think he won despite the fact that his answers were laughable.
Yeah.
He knows maybe 5 facts about the entire world. Maybe if you forced him, he could come up with 5 facts.
Johnny's been interested in these things his whole life.
He's been interested, but he couldn't cite anything. What have you been studying? Oh, lots of stuff. I talked to people. One book. Maybe you watched a TED Talk. You listened to a podcast. Some hardcore history. Say something.
How about who? Because you know he doesn't know it, Matt Lauer. How about who in Iraq would be your go-to guy to begin to build an Iraq that is strong enough to play a role in fighting ISIS?
Maybe you'd say Flynn.
Right, he wouldn't have, of course he doesn't have an answer.
Yeah.
Because he's like us, except we're not running for president.
Yeah.
And you probably have an answer.
He won this debate, or it wasn't even a debate. He won this town hall because, look, the first portion of it was, let's ask Hillary literally the hardest questions that she's ever been asked during this election cycle, which I loved. I think that the hard questions should be asked. And then Donald Trump comes in, and he is, to his credit, okay, is a master manipulator. He is so good at manipulating the conversation and somehow dodging the questions in a way that makes Hillary Clinton look terrible and makes him look like he would somehow do something differently, but it would be better, right? He doesn't talk about the policy ideas. He doesn't detail anything. All he simply does is attack Hillary, and people dislike her so much that that's all it takes for people to support Donald Trump. And even progressives. And look, I get it. I wanted Bernie Sanders to be the nominee. We were very clear and honest about that, right? But to make the argument that Donald Trump would somehow be better, especially when he comes out with ridiculous policy ideas like spending, what, $90 billion on increasing military spending.
Which he would use to occupy Iraq for decades and decades.
And take
so
their oil.
Oil.
I don't know. I can't say who won because I don't know. I've lost any sense of ability to predict. I think if the good thing about this is we're after Labor Day, and we know people pay more attention, and it seems hard for us to believe that everyone is not paying as close attention as we are, but they aren't. And so I still think that if you came at this fairly fresh, as some people will, there is a significant number of voters who are like, oh, this is the beginning of the season. I'm going to pay. I can't give more than 60 days to these 2 clowns. Yeah. This is what I'm going to give them. One person seemed like they had a sense of the world, and one person didn't. So that if she won, that's going to be why. I agree with Anna. He is a master manipulator, and she got hammered with questions that ultimately I actually don't think are the fairest questions in the world. But if you'd had a couple of press conferences over the last 780 days, you wouldn't have gotten those questions at the first chance that journalists had to really ask you about
them. They would have already been asked.
They would have been asked. They would have been hashed out. And so that's totally on her for creating this amazing lack of transparency. And the amazing lack of transparency that the Clintons have plays into why people latch onto this email thing when we don't really have much. There really isn't anything there. James Comey today sent an email to his staff, sent a memo to staff where he basically told them, essentially, stop whining. In a memo to employees, FBI Director James Comey said today the decision to not recommend charges against Hillary Clinton wasn't a close call. At the end of the day, said Comey, the case itself was not a cliffhanger. Despite all the chest beating by people no longer in government, there was not a prosecutable case. Those suggesting that we are political or part of some fix either don't know us or they're full of baloney, and maybe some of both. Now, I get it. So this isn't just about whether she committed crimes, but whether she showed the proper judgment. But we don't have a thing. We don't have the moment of, oh my God, this leaked thing got out. And the fact is, stuff is marked that way. But I don't know. I don't know that world. I don't know. But I know that we have latched onto a story that fits a narrative of the Clinton secrecy, which ultimately they're responsible for because they created that image. So this is how the media works. We can't pretend that it doesn't work that way. They've had 25 years of seeing this is how it's going to be, and they continue to behave in a way that plays right to it. But but on the merits of what they talked about, she understands the world we live in. She is, despite many complaints from progressives, while she has not been a progressive most of her life, in most of her political life that we've seen in some critical areas. She is also a very mainstream Democratic candidate. Her hawkishness is not out of league with the mainstream of the Democratic Party. Now, all of us at this table want to think our best bet for changing the direction of this country is moving the Democratic Party left, unless we can get another third party in there, but that's never happened. So my hunch is moving one party back to where it was 25 years ago might be our best tact. And that's a legitimate thing to argue, but she is not off the mainstream in foreign policy or domestic policy. And so we had a sane person in the mainstream of American politics, not the progressive any of us wanted, and one person doesn't know anything about anything and was somehow allowed to hang in there in this debate.
Yeah. Well, look, that's why I said that I think he won, not because he did better. I think that an intelligent person watching that, again, look, you can disagree with the judgments that she made, the votes that she made, and we have. He supported the worst things that she has supported. He supported those same things. So that is a wash at the end of the day.
Yeah, and she mentioned that in her answers.
Yeah, and she at least, you could at least say, and this is sort of an argument for cowardice, but as a member, like she was worried about re-election or something, the sort of BS that politicians always use to justify bad decisions they made. He was a private citizen. He could have just said no. There was no pressure on him to say we should go into Iraq, but he still said we should go into Iraq. Probably because he knew absolutely nothing about Iraq. But the reason I said he won is because we have to, it's not based on who did objectively better, it's who outperformed expectations. And with the questions that Matt Lauer asked, which were tough questions addressing the main concerns having to do with being commander-in-chief that people have, and even focusing a little bit too much on some of them, I think, but some of them are the legitimate concerns about Hillary. Then he pivots to Trump. He asks okay questions, and Trump spouts off BS that has no content in it, answers nothing, and then there's no follow-ups. There was never a reference to him supporting the war in Iraq or in the invasion of Libya or the fact that he also approved of the drawdown of troops in Iraq. That didn't happen. The two things he said that he was fairly specific on were good things, that if you serve in the armed forces, you should be allowed to become a citizen. He didn't really say that, but that's sort of the idea.
He said that he would work that out.
He'd work that out.
Yeah.
And tomorrow he'll say the exact opposite. And that if you have too long of a wait in the VA, you go out and you get a doctor. That's not a plan. That's the most vague thing I've ever heard in my life, but at least it's something. And then Matt Lauer had the one, the tweet where he was basically saying, oh, all these women get raped in the military. What'd they expect? They're women amongst men. And so he got it. That's good, Matt Lauer. And then Trump says, no, I was saying rape's bad. And then that's it. They move on. They just move on every time.
The one good thing that I hope Hillary will get across, and that, you know, she's not making it up. She's whatever the top tier of senators on veterans issues, she's in the top tier. She worked her ass off on it. She worked with Republicans because, of course, as we know, that's an issue where actually you can find common ground. And she did, and she led the way, and she did increase the benefit from $12,000 to $100,000. I don't know how much any of that landed. I hope. I mean, we all saw Trump perform abominably in Republican debates, and then it turns out win them. So maybe that'll turn out to be the case here.
God, my heart breaks for this country. This is so depressing.
He's one of the stupidest people I've ever listened to. In any context, political or otherwise. He knows nothing about the world. This is not some punk 17-year-old who doesn't care about the Middle East. This is an old man who has had international experience in business and has been running for president for a year and a half. He knows nothing. He wants to learn nothing. And the best case scenario we can hope for at this point is that, as he said he would, he will simply hand over foreign and domestic policy, just those two areas, to Mike Pence, an incredibly draconian right-wing governor.
Look, there's a part of me, a small part of me, that wants him to get elected just so we can watch this country crumble, and then I can point a finger to all the people who are arguing, progressives that are arguing that he would somehow be better for the country than Hillary Clinton. Crooked Hillary, crooked Hillary, crooked. I get it, crooked Hillary, right? The lack of transparency drives me crazy. Her ties to the financial industry drives me crazy. Her ties to the for-profit college industry drives me freaking crazy, okay? Yeah. But she's way more predictable than someone like Donald Trump, right? She's way more knowledgeable than Donald Trump, and she's way more liberal than Donald Trump, right? So, just this idea that somehow electing someone like him because it's shaking things up and it'll lead to something different is juvenile, and it drives me crazy. And it sucks because it puts me in a position where I support Hillary Clinton, and that's not the candidate that I wanted, but it is what it is.
Yeah, someone can be way less liberal than Bernie Sanders, and that still makes them way more liberal than Donald Trump. Yep. I mean,
and also, like,
it's frustrating.
What frustrates me about progressives who aren't getting behind Hillary, and again, I don't know. Maybe I'd feel the same. I certainly would feel the same way if it was Ted Cruz. I know I'd feel the same way if it was Ted Cruz. I don't think
for different reasons.
For different reasons, but I don't. But I think Ted Cruz would be a dangerous guy to.
Yeah.
I also think Ted Cruz would get crushed by any living Democrat, including Hillary, because he's crazy without the Trump magic, right? Whatever that Trump ability to.
Ted Cruz is not a master manipulator.
He's not a master manipulator.
No, he can barely keep his face on his head.
But if, Jimmy Dore has sat here a number of times, and when Clinton was talking about the TPP, and none of us really trust her on that, and if she had said the words, I supported it, but then I heard from my constituents, I heard from all of you, voters in the Democratic Party, and I've reassessed it, and I've changed my mind. Like, it's not that, to me, it's so easy to say things like that.
That she should say that.
Say that. I think all of us think, well, that would be nice to hear, right?
Which I don't think she has said.
No, she has not said.
I haven't even really heard her explain what switched her, supposedly.
But since she has essentially said it because the TPP thing seems because she championed it to that one feels, and it's Hillary Clinton, so you just get the feeling, come on, I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Yeah,
but on other things, where we know Hillary Clinton wants to increase the minimum wage, right? She does. She said it. Every Democrat wants to increase the minimum wage. So when she talks about raising it to 12 and Bernie's at 15, and then finally she essentially says, okay, in cities it could go to 15, and we'll start at 12 and we'll work it up to 15. That's like 84% of the way there. That is essentially saying, I have heard from you. I hear you. When she changes on college debt and comes 92% of the way toward Bernie's plan, that is saying that same thing. And so, and I'm unfortunately, I love Jimmy to death, but as we know, he's not going to vote for Hillary, and he advocates against her strongly on a regular basis, which I think does significant damage. So, because he has a following, and he's influential. So, to all those, she did what you wanted. That platform is the most liberal platform.
But you can say there are important issues that she hasn't moved on.
No question. But I mean, then you don't know anything about politics. You didn't get the candidate who won to completely adopt the policies of the candidate who she beat. So, but she came a long way. She has come a long way. I don't know whether she's going to do any of that. I'm dubious. But I really don't know. She might surprise us. Unquestionably, this woman, if she's elected, is going to be a better president than she is running for president.
Can you imagine if Hillary Clinton tweeted regarding rape in the military, if she had tweeted, well, what do you expect when you mix men and women together in the military? Can you freaking imagine if she had tweeted that? Okay? The scandal, the media coverage on that. I mean, Donald Trump tweets things like that on a regular basis. He can't even control his behavior on social media. And people are expecting him to somehow be much better than crooked Hillary. I get it. I see her flaws, but I don't think people are thinking reasonably, and I think this country's fucked.
Young Turks membership is awesome.
Says who?
Says me. But
please believe me.
TYTnetwork.com/join.